Hello, everyone. My name is Diego. I'm with Farmer Veteran Coalition. Thank you for joining us for our webinar today. We have two FSA reps with us, along with Chloe, our um, veteran service provider. We're going over disaster assistance, specifically targeting hurricane preparedness, but also other programs that can apply to any other disasters as well. As always, I like to start our webinars, which is where we're from. I'm down here in Waco, Texas, trying to survive the heat wave we're going through right now. But hope everyone's doing well. I'll let Chloe say a few words, then I will pass it on to Rick and then Savannah.
Hi, good morning, y'all, and good afternoon if you're on the East Coast side of things. Like he said, my name is Chloe, and I'm the veteran service provider here for Farmer Veteran Coalition. So if you've called or emailed since September, then I've probably gotten to visit with you and hopefully help you out and assist you. So we back in the fall, early fall, September, started working with Flower Hill. And basically, our goal is to get FSA disaster relief programs out to people, educate people, and that's all across the board FSA disaster relief. So it's not just hurricanes, it's everything that falls under that umbrella. This webinar is a little bit more targeted and specific, but anything, your livestock, your hurricane, wildfire. We're trying to get everything out there. So there's just a whole bunch of different programs that people aren't familiar with. So our goal is to help people become familiar. So Diego's done an incredible job of outreach to the targeting different states and just helping people learn and become more educated. It just because there's when disaster strikes, unfortunately a lot of people don't know how to the first steps to take to start that recovery process. So that's kind of why we're here and why we have been doing what we're doing. So thank y'all so much for being here. I know that there's a lot y'all could be doing, and I'm really excited for this, and I hope that everybody learned something.
Thank you for that, Chloe. And with that, we'll pass it on to Rick. I know you have a few words to say.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Diego. I appreciate the Farmers Veteran Coalition. My name is Rick Lopez, and I am the Regional Beginning Farmer Rancher Coordinator, and I handle veteran initiatives for the USDA. And it's a privilege to come out and speak with you all. Folks, I want to tell you something, okay? I work for the national office, but I'm actually located out here in New Mexico. I have a ranch out here in New Mexico. I raise cattle, been in the ag industry pretty much my whole life. Now, you got to remember something. Now, you guys get more rain on a Tuesday than what New Mexico gets in the whole year, and we're going to address that with some of the disaster relief. Savannah is with the Beginning Farmer Rancher state coordinator for the state of Florida. You guys couldn't have a better state coordinator. I'm telling you guys that right now. So the big thing I want to talk to you guys about is that you all served with pride, honor, and distinction in your military life. You transition, you come out of the military, and it's a big deal. I don't care if you're combat related service or not. It's a big deal because every day, every moment, the military is instructing you what to do. But it's giving you the skills. It's honing your tools for life. And then you come out of the military and you still have those tools. The Farmers Veteran Coalition is going to be your whetstone to sharpen, to take the rust off and sharpen those tools. Okay. It's important for you as a beginning farmer, as a veteran beginning farmer and rancher, to really follow the programs that the USDA and in particular what the Farm Service Agency has to offer for disaster relief, because the most vulnerable farmers and ranchers are beginning farmers and ranchers. Y'all don't have a big pool of money stored away somewhere, and you can be out there growing strawberries and in a 30-second hailstorm can wipe your crop out. And you're going to ask yourself, oh my God, what am I going to do? I was counting on that money. Well, you go to the Farm Service Agency, you find your local one, you get a farm number. That's going to be the key, because the key to getting anything, any programs registered and whatnot, is getting a farm number. Okay. I want to tell you guys, you have the skills, you're getting the knowledge. The Farmers Veteran Coalition offers webinars throughout the country on a continuous basis, and they put the focuses on what you all need. Okay, the USDA offers programs for disaster assistance. It's going to offer programs for loans. It's going to bring in soil experts. It's going to offer programs that if your corn is 2 feet tall and your neighbor's corn is 6 feet tall, what's the deal? What's the problem? You can get with soil experts through the Natural Resource and Conservation Services. They're going to talk to you a little bit about risk management. So important. That's what these programs here at the USDA, we focus on you. We take special pride. I take special pride being an Army veteran. I take special pride in helping veterans achieve their goals. We can do it together, guys. We can do it just like in the military. We always had somebody that had our back. The biggest thing is, folks, as you know, that with the government, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of regulations, there's a lot of paperwork. Don't get discouraged, because these programs are made and designed for the farmer, for the rancher. But it all starts with you. It all starts with you. And we're hoping that you all can move forward, can learn, especially from the Farmers Veteran Coalition. They are passionate about helping veterans. Let that passion come on over to you and do what we ask. The one thing that we ask is for you to continue to accept the responsibility of feeding America. That is your next step. You were protecting America. We ask you now to help feed America. And you guys are doing your role. You know, I wanna tell you guys something. Out here, in New Mexico, I get to work with veterans from all over the country. The one thing that I'm always finding from the veterans in agriculture is ingenuity and purpose. Put your hand over your heart. What do you feel? What you're feeling is purpose. You have purpose. You had purpose in the military, and you have purpose now in the agricultural world and community. We are relying on you. The average farmer and rancher in America is 59 and a half years old, guys. We need to build a bench. We need to build and bring in the next generation of ranchers and farmers. There's going to be a lot of opportunity as more and more of people of my generation are retiring. They're going to be selling their farms. You know, for a farmer and a rancher, their retirement basically is that farm. When they get too old to farm and to ranch it, it's time to cash in on their investment. Be a part of that. Be a part of that, but don't leave yourself vulnerable. You guys are coming up on hurricane season. We all know how devastating that can be. Take advantage of the Farm Service Agency disaster relief programs. Savannah is going to give you guys a great presentation on what you need. Follow, contribute, help the Farmers Veteran Coalition, because they are here for one purpose, and that purpose is you. Take advantage of it. Move forward. Be successful. Guys, we can't feed America without you. That responsibility is huge, but it lies on your shoulders. I welcome you to this webinar series. I thank you for coming on, and I salute you for serving our country. Thank you. Thank you, Diego.
Thank you for that, Rick. Thank you for those great words, and I really appreciate your support and everyone else's support as well for FVC. Now, Savannah, I know we had you waiting a bit, but we can get started with the presentation. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat or Q&A. We'll answer them as we go through or at the end of the presentation. But yeah, Savannah, go ahead.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Diego. So I am Savannah Danver, and I am the State Outreach and Public Affairs Coordinator for Florida, and I also cover the U.S. Virgin Islands. As Rick said, I'm also the State Beginning Farm and Rancher Coordinator. So I'm very excited to be here and be able to talk to you a little bit more about disaster assistance. We'll talk a little bit about each program, some loan options, and then at the end, kind of what you do next, right? Like how do you contact your local office? How do you stay up to date with the latest deadlines and, newest things that come out of USDA? So go ahead and get started. So, and if you're not already familiar, Farm Service Agency does offer two different areas, is kind of the way that we approach it. And we have our program side and then we have our loan side. And just to give you an overview, on our program side, we do have disaster assistance and then we have conservation programs, safety net programs, and risk management. Today, we'll be focusing primarily on the disaster assistance portion. And then we also have loans. And so those can include ownership loans, operating loans, microloans, and emergency loans. We will be talking briefly about those emergency loans today. So I know many of you may be on your phones, so QR codes may or may not work, but I will definitely drop the links to all of these things that I'm going to go through in the presentation at the end, just to make sure you have them all in one section. But USDA does offer a variety of programs that helps farmers and ranchers and businesses who've been hit with disasters. Some of our sister agencies do offer some other relief, and so that's just good to know. But we'll be focusing on Farm Service Agency today. But the QR code, the first one is the Hurricane Preparation and Recovery Resources page. And then that second one is going to be going over FSA's fact sheets. Those are going to be the areas where you're looking for hurricane information. Like I think all of the deadlines have passed, but that's one of the places where, Milton and we had Helene and all those hurricanes that happened last year. That's where all of that information is going to be held. And so when we go through the next one, not if, when we go through the next one this season, that's going to be where the latest is going into. And that comes into play a lot when you talked about the program side. And the reason why I say that is because some of the programs will be what we call triggered by that natural disaster. So whenever the secretary or the president declares a natural disaster, that kind of tells us that we can start, putting funding forward for those particular programs. So that's the only reason why I mentioned that, but that's still a great resource. Otherwise, there's some other things on there too. And then for the FSA fact sheets, we had a migration in our website, and so that is the newest link for the fact sheets. And so anytime we have an update to a program, or even just visually they decide to change a fact sheet, they're going to be posted in that section of the website. So those are two good links just to have. So on the program side, there's going to be a lot of acronyms. I'm sure we're all used to that in the military. Nothing new there, but I will be using them just to try and, cut down on the amount of words that I'm saying. So this is just to kind of give you an idea of what they all are. So the first one I'm going to be talking about is the Emergency Assistance for Livestock, Honeybees, and Farm-Raised Fish Program, which we refer to as ELAP. And then we have the Livestock Indemnity Program, which is LIP. The Livestock Forage Program, we just call that one LFP. And then Tree Assistance Program is TAP. And then we have Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance, which we refer to as NAP. And then Emergency Conservation Program, ECP. And then Emergency Forestry Restoration Program, which is EFRP. So reporting losses and submitting applications. Each one is slightly different. We have realigned many of them, so I think it hopefully is a little less confusing, which is a really exciting part for all of us internally and you all externally. So for ELAP, your final day to file a notice of loss, which means you contacted your office, you experienced this, notice of loss in whatever capacity due to a natural disaster, and then you can file that notice with your local office. And the final day to submit an application for payment is March 1st after the program year in which the loss occurred. So if I don't know, maybe we had a disaster late, had a hurricane in October, you basically have until March 1st after the program year in which the loss occurred. And then for LIP, it's the same thing. To file a notice, you have until March 1st after the program year. TAP's a little bit different. That one is you have to file a program application within your service center, which service center is also we consider a county office. So if I use those interchangeably, I apologize. I'll try to be consistent. But service centers and county offices are the same thing. And then you have to do the NAP application within 90 days. And then, excuse me, TAP within 90 days. NAP is like crop insurance, so it's already a coverage you should have, but those should be the notice of loss to your service center within 15 days, except for hand harvested crops, which can be filed or should be filed within 72 hours. So you have to file that a lot sooner. For NAP forage producers with the intended use of grazing who elect to use independent assessments or other approved alternative loss percentage methods to establish their loss is no longer required to file a notice of loss. So if you are one of those people, you don't have to do that anymore. So ELAP. So it's very wordy. I apologize. There's a lot of information, which I'm glad we're recording because you can go back and look at it. It's just a lot of information to put into a slide. So I do apologize. I'm not going to go into every single detail on the slide. I will pause so you have a little bit of time to kind of look through it. But ELAP is divided up into livestock, honeybees, and then farm-raised fish. So there's three different, I guess, livestock honey options within that program. And so for livestock, more specifically, to be an eligible producer, you have to have livestock who have suffered losses due to disease, adverse weather, or other qualifying condition. And so that could be flooding, a hurricane, that can be drought, all these other things. So it's just a qualifying condition. And so the fact sheets that I mentioned in the beginning, it'll go into more details. And then always, if you have questions, you can definitely reach out to your local service center and ask them. You have to provide documentation of those losses. So it basically has to show that you lost this animal because of this disaster. And then what else is eligible for livestock?
Well, looks like she lost connection. Yeah,
Let me
me too.
jump in there, Diego, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the program that she's talking about here, and Savannah, if you get your connection back, please just interrupt and kick me out. But the program that she's talking about here is a program that is really, really helpful if you're raising cattle, or if you have. I know a lot of people back east, honeybees, bees are a big part of it. What we're looking to do here is we cover our disaster relief
Sorry about that.
programs.
I'm back.
Okay, good. Are you back? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I apologize. Our internet just in the office, just very sometimes questionable. Okay, can you see my screen okay?
No, we
No.
can't see your screen, but we can see
Okay.
your smiley face.
Well, that's good. Let's try that again. Okay, I think I got it this time.
It's okay. Internet issues are a common problem for everybody.
There
So
you go.
you're
Perfect.
fine.
Yeah,
You're
this.
back in the saddle.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let me finish up with livestock. So I went over there's grazing animals, livestock that would normally be grazing, eligible grazing lands or pastures, and then I think the other important thing is like own, cash lease, purchase, or under contract for purchase, being raised by growers, so or from producers. So there's lots of eligible livestock feed and grazing losses. I would still recommend you just reach out to your local county office to see. And it's also good too, like I know this is kind of off the side, but it's better to reach out to your county office now ahead of a disaster, and I'll talk more about that a little bit at the end because you can find out information about this, about your specific thing that you're growing or livestock or raising or whatever it is. So that way you can see, like, okay, if I were to experience this, what programs may I be eligible for? That's always a great thing to do ahead of time. Okay. One more for livestock, just additional eligible losses are grazing, feeding, transportation. grazing loss payments, losses from additional costs of water, like if you're experiencing drought, and some other things in there too. So kind of a little off the beaten path, not quite, related to hurricanes, but still a great thing to know about. Honeybees. So if you have honeybees, eligible producers risk in honey production, pollination, or honeybee breeding for commercial uses. So this does not include hobby farmers. You have to be commercial use, which basically means you're selling some product from that or selling some product for profit. And so all of those can be used as a farming operation and must have risk at the beginning of dates of adverse weather or loss condition. I know, gosh, when was that? I feel like we had a time, maybe it was a year or two ago now, where honeybees were they were getting too hot. And so they had to transport a lot of water for honeybees. And so, like, that's kind of an example of something that could be in this area. Or sometimes with honeybees, the loss isn't known right away, like after a hurricane. And so, definitely check with your local office, let them know ahead of time what you've experienced. So that way, if you do have a colony issue later, then, you have that on file. For eligible, bees must be housed in a managed hive and used for honey production, pollination, or breeding. Ineligible, wild, feral honeybees, leafcutter bees, or any other bee species that are not used for those things. Okay, so now we're going into ELAP for farm-raised fish. So this one's also a kind of a long one. And so eligible producers, basically you're just a producer or legal entity who has aquatic species that are propagated and reared in a controlled environment being maintained for commercial use as part of the producer's farming operation. You also own or lease the property with readily identified boundaries and then have control over the waterbed, the ground under that specific water, and not just control over the column of the water. And then purchased, or produced feed for those farm raised fish. And then you'll see here, there's eligible fish that are on here. So I'm not going to go into all of them, but there's quite a few. And I do know that from previous hurricanes, we've had producers that have been able to be participating in the ELAP program for farm raised fish, especially down in South Florida and then near Tampa areas. So I'll leave that just for a second. My internet dropped. I'm trying to go a little bit quicker. Okay. And then for feed, as it relates to farm-raised fish, the feed must be intended for the fish, right? And it has to be that aquatic species that meets that previous requirement, maintained and harvested for commercial use, and then physically located in the county where that adverse weather condition occurred. And then what covers the losses for ELAP, death losses of the eligible fish, and then purchased and or produced farm-raised fish feed. So again, related, kind of similar to the livestock in those ways. Okay, LIP, Livestock Indemnity Program. To be eligible for LIP, a livestock producer must have legally owned the livestock the day that the livestock died or were injured by an eligible loss. And then the owner's livestock must have either died as a direct result of the eligible loss or injured as a direct result of that condition, of that weather or loss condition. Eligible livestock must have been maintained for, again, commercial use. You'll see that on all the slides. All of our programs, they have to be intended for commercial use and not hobby. You just have to be trying to sell for a profit, like using that as an operation. And then eligible livestock must not have been produced or maintained for reasons other than commercial use. So like an example might be you're using those animals for roping or maybe for show, something like that, that can't be claimed for LIP. And then this is just a chart showing you some of the eligible livestock. So you can kind of see for this one what might be eligible. So you can see this one's a little different than the other ones in the past, where this one also includes poultry, swine, and then other options, which we saw other options when we were looking at ELAP, but this one's kind of a little more expanded.
And Savannah, we got a quick question, if you don't
Okay,
mind.
sure.
So one is, how does LIP differ from ELAP?
So they are, let's see. So they're going to be different, I think, in what the like, I don't want to say payout's not the right word, but like what, how much you're going to be eligible for. And then this one is more specific to an eligible loss, where the other one I think is slightly different in maybe what the requirements are for like that one is related to disasters, like an emergency situation, where this one might be maybe you just had a drought, or maybe you had something that could have been struck by lightning that happens to cows. So that might be a little bit different. And Rick, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's a giant difference in any other way. Is that right?
Yeah, basically the two differences, the big differences of the program is one of them, if we're going to be able, if you lose, say through drought or through hurricane or whatnot, and you lose your grazing, say on cattle, or you lose your crops, we're going to replace that. On the livestock indemnity program, we are going to replace the actual animal itself for you. So if and this happens in Florida, it happens in New Mexico, number one and number two, in lightning strikes, where if your cattle are hurt are huddled together and a lightning strike hits one of them, there's a good chance that lightning's going to spread over all of them. If this happens, though, you need to immediately take pictures of the incident. You go out there the next morning, and after the storm or whatnot, and you see them laying over. You need to take photos of what just occurred. Then you need to go that same day. You need to go down to your county FSA office, get with your county executive director so you can file a claim with what just happened. And so there's monies available. Now you're not going to get compensated 100%. You're not going to get all of that cow's worth, but you know what? It may help you. It may be enough to to keep you. If you have a loan with them, may help make that loan payment for the year. It may help you restock the loss of that animal and whatnot. So that's the importance of these programs. Where the other program is going to help you if you lose the crop, if you lose the grazing, if you need to haul water to where those cattle or whether they're sheep, if you lose that, they're going to be able to help compensate you on that as well. So thank you, Savannah.
Yeah, thanks, Rick, for that. Yeah, so I think those are the major differences. But again, like Rick said, I think the biggest thing is documenting everything and then contacting your local office as soon as possible. And they can walk you through this as well. So being able to make sure to understand what you can actually apply for based on, your loss.
Okay. And then one more quick question. Are you restricted to one program per declared disaster, or can you apply for multiple ones?
I think you can apply for multiple ones, but not for like the same thing. So, like
Yeah.
for example, I haven't gotten to it yet. We'll talk over ECP. So let's say that you experienced a hurricane, you lost some cattle, and some fences fell over at the same time. So, like ECP would cover your fences, where LIP or ELAP might cover your cattle. So
Oh,
you can't like double dip for the same like part of the disaster you experienced, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Diego, what'll happen here basically is if you get a farm number, okay, you apply for NAP insurance, non-assurable products, uh, and you have that insurance, and these programs kick in. There's a natural disaster declared by the Secretary of Ag, declared by the president, or declared by the governor, then these programs kick in and you become eligible at this time. There has to be a trigger mechanism for these programs to kick in. Okay, if you are assigned a farm serial number and you're carrying NAP insurance, then basically you are going to be covered once these programs kick in. It's not like an auto insurance policy where you have to go and you have to maintain it. You have to maintain it. The biggest thing is you have to carry that NAP insurance and that farm serial number.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Rick. And that's all
All
the
right.
questions for now.
Okay, good. And to Rick's point too, I mentioned earlier about, the president or secretarial designation. That's another good point is that when they declare those things, it lets USDA know that we can start looking to see what programs can be triggered based on that. And so sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get that out. And I'll talk about it at the end, but there's a way you can stay updated on which programs are being triggered based on that disaster. So at the end, when I give you information about how to stay up to the latest with us, we send out information that says, hey, we've extended or we've set the deadline for X, Y, and Z programs based on the disaster declaration of whatever it is. So that should also help you too to understand which programs are going to be available for that disaster. And those are all based on assessments. Here, the University of Florida usually does a lot of the assessments. Land grant institutions across the country usually help out with that to better understand what the economic impact was for a particular area. And after we receive that assessment, we can route that information up. And that's when the information comes back down from the national office to let us know which programs will be able to be triggered based on that disaster. Okay. All right, so livestock forage program, so LFP. So for this one, this has to do with drought. And so for eligible counties, this is a county by county level like drought thing. And so what they do is we use the US drought monitor, and that when it hits certain levels, that's going to trigger LFP or trigger us to let us know that LFP can be triggered. And so an eligible livestock producer who, as a grazed forage crop producer, owns or leases grazing land or pasture land physically. You have to be located in the county, which the U.S. Drought Monitor has triggered a drought. And so you can find it on that link. I actually don't think I have that link to give y'all later, so I will make sure to grab it at the end to make sure I include it in the chat. And so for eligible livestock, grazing animals that satisfy the majority of the energy net requirement for nutrition. So basically, they eat grass or grazing forages as the majority of where they get their food from. And those can be grazing grasses, legumes, or species such as beef, cattle, bison, a lot of the other species we've talked about before. So for an eligible producer, I think most of these are about the same as we've seen before. I think the biggest thing to note that's different here is that you have to be physically located in the county affected by that qualifying drought. The same thing really goes for hurricanes and disasters. They'll list certain counties that are affected by it. But with hurricanes, it's slightly different because it gets revised to add additional counties as new assessments come in, because we know hurricane recovery takes a long time. But for this one, it's a little bit more straightforward because the drought monitor is constantly looking. So I'd say that's probably a little bit different. And then also, this one does mention timely filing an acreage report. And so I'll talk a little bit more at the end. But acreage reporting is also really important to do annually with your local office. And then for enrollment, if you are eligible and are a producer of grazed forage crops, then you must complete an application for payment and required supporting documentation to your office by March 1st, after the end of the calendar year in which the grazing loss occurred. And so just keep that in mind. So TAP. So Tree Assistance Program provides assistance for eligible orchardists and nursery tree growers to replant or rehabilitate trees, bushes, vines raised for production of an annual crop that were lost because of an eligible natural disaster. Some of the eligible tree types are nursery, ornamental, fruit, nut, or Christmas trees used for commercial sale. And then trees used for pulp or timber are not eligible under this program. And so for this one, you have to have suffered a qualifying tree, bush, or vine loss in excess of 15% mortality for the stand, and then due to a natural disaster again. And then have owned eligible tree, bushes, or vines when the natural disaster occurred. And then replaces eligible trees, bushes, and vines within 12 months from the date the TAP application is approved. So NAP, Rick mentioned this a few times, so this will give us a little bit more information about it. And so for eligible producers for our non-insured crop disaster assistance program, you have to be a landowner, a tenant, or a sharecropper who shares in the risk of producing an eligible crop and is entitled to ownership share of that crop. And so the individual's adjusted gross income cannot exceed 900,000 to be eligible for these payments. And coverage levels, so this is kind of like an insurance. So let's say that you have a crop that's not insured by regular crop insurance. This could potentially cover you to a certain level, right? And so you must select your coverage level from the crop and county application closing date and pay the applicable service fee, which is $325 per crop, not to exceed a total of $1,950 for a producer with farming interests in multiple counties, unless it's waived by filing your 860, which as veterans, you potentially could file your 860s and you may have that fees waived in that program, which is really great. A couple of the other programs have similar benefits if you have a veteran status. And basic coverage is based on the amount of loss that exceeds 50% of the expected production at 55% of the average mark price for that crop. And so you can do buy-up coverage, which is like buying higher levels of coverage, ranging from 50 to 65% of production. And so you can do it in 5% increments at 100% of the average market price. And so producers who elect for this higher coverage level must also pay the calculated premium, which is the maximum premium being calculated at $15,750 per producer. So it gives you an idea of basically if you have crops that can't be insured by other crop insurance, look into NAP and see if that might work for you. And then see what your options are for buy-up coverage and if that works for you and your operation. This is really great to definitely look at ahead of time. This is something you have to have in place before a disaster happens. But I still think it's a great option to look into before a hurricane hits. So these are the eligible crops. Again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but again, commonality between all of these must be commercially produced. And so you can kind of see just some examples. The main one is crops grown for food, but we have some other options too, like grown for livestock consumption, specialty crops like honey or maple sap, not really maple sap in Florida, but honey more for us, and some other ones here. So basically it has to be related to, something with food or food adjacent kind of things, or like bio-based fuels and things like that. All right, ECP. So the Emergency Conservation Program is a really big one for us in Florida. A lot of people take advantage of this program, which is really great. We get a lot of people calling about moving debris and rebuilding fences and things like that. And so there are some different nuances in this particular program. And so for this one, each local county office has a county committee, and that's made up, I'll talk about that at the end as well. That one is made up of all the local farmers and producers. You get nominated onto this committee, and then they help do a lot of things to help run the county, ensure that payments are going out to farmers and things are meeting their needs, on top of doing outreach to talk more about these programs. But in this particular case, they do inspect the damage to determine if the land is eligible for this program, and land that qualifies. The damage from the natural disaster, severe drought, must create a new conservation problem if not dealt with. And so further damage the land significantly affects the land's productive capacity, and so represents damages from natural disasters unusable in the area, and so be too costly to repair without federal assistance in order to return the land to agricultural production. So for example, if you had a tree fall on something like, let's say, out in a field somewhere, not necessarily going to be true if it fell on your cropland or land you intended to use for crops in the next season or cycle, that might qualify for this program. Or fences. Fences, if you have livestock, obviously you need to get that fence repaired very quickly. So that would be something that could be under this program as well. And so for technical assistance to fix these kind of problems, it may also be great to know about our Natural Resources and Conservation Service, or NRCS. They also help with conservation problems that existed before the natural disaster occurred. And so another great partner to work with ahead of a storm, especially if you have some conservation things going on your farm, or if that's something you're interested in looking into further. All right, EFRP. So this one is the Emergency Forestry Restoration Program. And so for you to be eligible for this one, you have to have existing tree cover and be owned by a non-industrial private individual, group, association, corporation, or other private entity. And so EFRP participants may implement emergency forest restoration practices such as debris removal, downed or damaged trees, in order to establish a new stand or provide for natural regeneration. And then site preparation, planting materials, labor, replanting those stands, restoration of the roads, fire lanes, fuel breaks or erosion control structures, and fencing, tree shelters, tree tubes, and then wildlife enhancement to cover those openings. So this would be great if you have, timber, basically, if you have a farm of timber. Okay, so looking at types of farm loans. So again, I just mentioned earlier that we have different loan types. And so this kind of goes into the types. We have direct loans and we have guaranteed loans. Direct loans is when FSA makes and services the direct loans through progressive lending with funds from the US Treasury. And then guaranteed loans are loan guarantees for loans made by conventional lenders. So we have two different avenues to get loans. And so with direct loans, we can talk about ownership loans, or actually all of those can be under that. But for direct, what we're talking about today is going to be more about emergency loans and disaster set aside. Those are kind of important things to know in case you're experiencing something that's going on during a hurricane. But for guaranteed loans, just know that financing can be offered for both ownership and operating loans purposes with a maximum loan amount of a little over $2 million. And each loan can be guarantees the loan up to 95%. But we're going to talk about those direct loans, more about the disaster related ones. So for emergency loans, you can kind of read through this, but this is one of your options. So if for whatever reason, all these other disaster assistance programs, you either were able to use them or they weren't enough, or you have something else going on, you have this as your other option. And so for the maximum loan amount, it's 100% of the actual physical losses, 500,000 maximum program indebtedness. And you can see the rates and terms are there, but the terms go from 1 year to 7 years for non-real estate purposes, terms up to 40 years for physical losses on real estate. And then common uses, restore or replace essential property, pay for all or part of the production costs associated with that disaster year, pay essential family living expenses, reorganize the farming operation, and then refinance debts with certain limitations. So that is another option for you as well. This goes into a little bit about who can be eligible for it. And so you have to own or operate land located in that county, again, that's been declared as a natural disaster, or all counties contiguous to that disaster, which when you see an announcement go out, we will designate those two types. And so as long as you're in one of those, then you would be able to be qualified for that in this case. And then if you are established family farm operators and have significant farming or ranching experience, are citizens or permanent residents of the U.S., have suffered at least 30% loss in crop production or physical loss to livestock or real estate or property, and then have an acceptable credit history, and then are unable to receive credit from commercial sources, and can provide collateral to secure the loan and have repayment abilities. So another thing that we have that can kind of help you out is going to be the disaster set aside program. And these are services for existing loans with with FSA. And so this assists farmers with existing loans who've been impacted by a natural disaster, provides financial relief by allowing eligible producers to move one annual installation or installment for each loan to the end of the loan term. So basically you can move one installment of your loan back to the end of the term. So it kind of pushes it back for you so you have some more time to catch up. And the set aside installment helps producers regain financial footing without facing that immediate repayment pressure. And so you can focus more on, recovering from the natural disaster. To apply, borrowers must submit a written request to your local service center. And the application must include documentation of that disaster impact, financial need, and inability to be able to make that installment. And so the set aside terms, one installment per loan can be set aside, and the set aside amount can move to the end of the loan term, effectively extending the loan by one installment period. So the primary loan servicing, you may also need your loans to be restructured because of a natural disaster or financial problems. And so UF has several loan servicing options that can be used to bring your account current and make new restructured payment plans. So it's always strongly encouraged, like if you're having issues with your loans, to definitely contact your local service center and see what options might be available to you. Like don't wait until something gets really dire. Go ahead and reach out to them early to see what options they can help you with, because we're definitely here to help you in any way we can. Okay, now we're past all the programs and loans. This will hopefully, I'm trying to talk quickly and wrap this up because I know we have some questions at the end. And so one of the cool things that FSA has been working on is doing business with FSA online. And so there's a farmers.gov portal that you can use, that you can view, upload. It's not for everything, but I think eventually that's where we're hopefully going to. And so you'll be able to view, upload, download, e-sign documents. You can view a lot of your documents online, be able to see them. You can request some assistance, view and request application details, and then do some other things in there too. So I think this is going to be a really great opportunity for many of us to have it on the go. So you don't necessarily have to go into an office all the time. Sometimes you still do, but for now, I think this is super helpful. Okay, so what happens on the first visit? So I think before I go into the first visit, I just want to recap a little bit on what you need to do before a storm comes, or basically right now where we don't have any storms, I think last time I checked in the Atlantic, before it gets really crazy. I think it's really important that you reach out to your FSA office in advance and set up an appointment with them. Go ahead and get your farm number, as Rick mentioned, and get established with us as a customer. This will help expedite any assistance that you're going to need post hurricane. Because if you're already a customer of ours, that expedites a lot of paperwork on your half and our half. So I think that that's always a smart thing to do, is go ahead and come in, get established as a customer, get your farm number, and go ahead and figure out what programs you might be able to apply for, what are most relevant based on your operation. And some of the things that you do need to have for that first appointment are going to be proof of identity, like a driver's license, Social Security. You do need your IRS number, and then proof of ownership or leases, like, proof saying that you can do what you're doing, like whether it be farming or livestock or something like that. And then any of these other things. So if you have a parcel ID, and then your email address, because we do a lot of things through email. And so it makes it a little bit easier for us to get in contact with you. And then these two QR codes are just examples of what the packet will look like. I think some of the forms might be a little outdated. We haven't updated that on a national level yet, but I still think it's worthwhile to look through the forms to figure out what kind of information you may need to bring for your appointment. And that first one is just how to register as an individual, and then the other one is as an entity. So that was kind of give you an idea of the paperwork you're going to be filling out as that first time customer. And so let's say you go ahead and do that, and now all of a sudden we know a hurricane's coming. Best thing you can do is keep records of everything. Keep records of all of your livestock numbers, all of the receipts you've paid for things. Take lots of pictures. It's kind of similar to hurricane prep for like yourself if you own a home, or you sometimes businesses you might work for does hurricane prep. So take lots of pictures ahead of time. Make sure you have good record keeping of all your animals or all your crops, all of your inventory. So if you have tractors or if you've just gotten some service, so just make sure you're keeping really good records. Take pictures of everything, and then keep that somewhere where it's not going to get damaged if we do get hit with a hurricane or a tornado or something like that. And so I think that that's probably the best thing. And then, like Rick mentioned, if you do experience a loss of any kind, post-storm, once it's safe, go outside and take all the pictures, document everything. Make sure if you have anyone come out, look at something, you're getting some receipt of service, or some way to show that you've had them out there. I think that's going to be really important to have. It makes it a lot easier to expedite that when you have the before and the after picture, right? So I think that's something really important to know. Okay, county committees. I mentioned this quite a few slides back, and I said I'd come back to it. So county committees are basically, comprised of local farmers and ranchers, landowners that have been elected by your peers, and you help supervise the local office and conduct outreach with farmers, make critical decisions about our programming. And so it's super important. County committees play a huge role in a lot of these programs and decisions that are going to be made for the counties. And so I just wanted to bring this up. I do on every presentation, but more so now because our committee election timeline, our nomination period just started in June. And so it goes through August. So if you are interested in learning more about how you can do this, reach out to your local service center and talk to them a little bit more about the county committee and how you apply or how you nominate. And so I think this is a great one to just kind of have a voice and be able to help lead your local FSA service center. Okay, these last two, again, I'll have the links right after this. I just can't see it on all the screens to be able to drop them in the chat just yet. And these next two are just, this is how you find your local service center. Some of our offices do cover more than one county, and so this is the easiest way to find out who your local offices are. This is a great link because it also includes our sister agencies. So you also have NRCS and then rural development that usually comes up as well. And so I think that's really helpful to know as well. This other one is how you stay connected with us. And so this is what I mentioned quite a few times throughout the presentation, but farmers.gov/subscribe, in case you can't scan the QR code. It's so important that you sign up for this because this is how you're going to get notification that we had a disaster declared and that USDA is starting to do some kind of program out of it. So you're going to hear it on the news, right? The president declared a disaster or the governor declared it, but that doesn't mean that we have done it yet, like internally. And so this is how you're going to stay up to date. But this is how you're also going to find out about all these new programs. So we just had ECAP was a recent program and the mask was a recent program. So this is a great way to stay up to date on the latest coming out of our office, but also on a national level too. So I highly recommend everyone to sign up for this. You can also drill it down where you can sign up for your local county and the state. And so this is really good because I send out a monthly newsletter and then also your counties will send out deadline reminders or they have more specific information that might be coming out for your county. So these are also super important as well. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. And then Diego, if you want to tell me if there's any things going on, and if not, I'm going to drop all those links in the chat.
No, doesn't like have any questions. Thank you for that great presentation. If anyone has any questions, now's the time to put them in the chat or Q&A. While Savannah's working on the links, I know we have Loretta and Marcos with us with Flower Hill. Flower Hill, we're partnered with for this program for disaster assistance, just again providing information and education about how to apply, how to get assistance. If Loretta or Marcos has anything to say on behalf of Flower Hill, you're welcome to say something right now. If not, that's fine too. I know it's kind of been in the background, but doesn't look like we have any questions. Tyrone, see you have your hand raised. If you could just type it out in the chat if you have anything to say.
Hey, Diego.
Go ahead, Rick.
If I can interject something, Savannah talked so brilliantly about NAP insurance and getting a farm member. Guys, she put an awful lot of information in your toolbox. Okay, don't worry if you're thinking like me, an old coot, thinking, hell, I'm going to forget a lot of this. The number one thing to get out of this is that that there are a lot of great programs there if you need it. But also, more importantly, we're telling you to go into that county office, introduce yourself, and start a partnership, start a relationship with that county executive director. Don't be afraid to get involved and go to a county office committee meeting. Okay, get involved, get active with your Farm Service Agency, your NRCS, your rural development, get active with them because they are going to be able to answer questions as they come up in your head. And let me tell you, the worst time to walk into that office to apply for disaster assurance is the day after a disaster. That's not going to do you any good for that disaster. You know, you don't go and insure your car once it's totaled. You insure it before it gets totaled. Hopefully it never gets totaled. But you know, there's an old Chinese saying that when's the best time to plant a tree, and that was 10 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. So remember that. Get down to your county office, introduce yourselves, ask questions, ask them for literature about the different programs. They may have it, they may not, but at least you're starting that relationship. And then there's a thing called Gov Delivery. I want to tell you guys real quickly about it. She mentioned it to you. But if you get on that and you register for on Gov Delivery, when you're getting your NAP insurance and your farm serial number, you're going to receive texts and emails when these programs trigger. You're actually going to get a text on your phone saying, hey, this is the FSA and this program, this disaster relief program has just got triggered. So you know you can go down to that office and make sure that your paperwork is being filed and take copious records. One last thing I want to leave you guys with. Records, records, records. How do you keep these and maintain these records as you file a Schedule F on your income tax? And that Schedule F is for farms. And that is how you establish records along through your process. And it's going to go a long way if you ever have to apply for an FSA loan. You now have an established record for how long you've been farming, your profit and your loss, and it's going to benefit you and help the process go a lot smoother. Thank you, Diego. I appreciate you.
Thank you for that, Rick. And we put a bunch of links in the chat. Savannah did as well. Just helpful links that you can look through that relates to the presentation. I see Loretta put something in the chat. This is the Richard's comments. Yes, keep good records and create a good relationship with your local FSA staff. I can't stress enough how important that is. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. Chloe is our veteran service provider, so she's helping with technical assistance. So if you need that, please reach out to her at chloe@farmvehicle.org. You can also reach out to me, diego@farmvehicle.org. Again, it's being recorded. It'll be uploaded to our YouTube channel within the next couple days, hopefully by Monday at the latest. But yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Savannah and Richard, for the excellent presentation. Thank you, Fire, for joining us. And also, Rick, thank you for your service as well. And again, if anyone has any questions, please reach out to us. But other than that, hope you have a great day.